which, hey, we've got a few people here. How many? 4? That's fine. I have no idea if this is going to work or not.
It's actually 5.
I actually got a I had a little tripod, but last time I just sort of took my phone and I just leaned it up against some books and it kept falling down, and people getting to see the ceiling. So I got a little bracket to hold it. It's not a selfie stick. Really, it's not a selfie stick, right? So, okay. All right, so I guess we can get started. Did you guys just wander into the wrong room, or were you actually know what Megatokyo is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's
I'm
good.
new to this.
You're new to this?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Well,
Try to read the back of the book real quick.
the egress is about the right width that you can run anytime. It's what is it?
Can you talk about my thing?
You can talk about your stuff.
It looks like you
Let me
already
introduce-
dropped out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to the what is it I do again? Megatokyo panel. So I've been doing these for a number of years. I'm trying to think of the last time I was here at Ohayocon. I've been to Ohayocon. I think I was here in 2003 or something like that. It was the first one I did, and that was quite a while ago. And I think I was here about 6 years ago or so. So it's been a few years. So I'm glad to be back. Drove down in the rain. Hopefully I'm not going to be driving home in the ice. And that's kind of starting to sound like it's going to get scary out there. So hopefully we're all safely here and not going anywhere. Anyway, this is, these panels, I've done lots of these panels over the years, and really they kind of just sort of have I can answer questions or kind of go on topics people want to talk about. You know, if it's just a couple of people, that's usually fine. You can usually have a nice little conversation about whatever. And I can talk to myself. I'm good at that. So, so my name's Fred Gallagher. I've been doing Megatokyo since August of 2000, which is a scary long time ago now. I always sort of joke at the idea that, and say that Megatokyo is a comic that, the most common thing I've heard over the past number of years has been, wow, I used to read this in high school. I'm starting to get to the point where people are going to come up and say, oh, you're that comic my parents used to read. You know, that's, oh well, unlike many webcomics, it is still going, and I'm still producing it, and even though it should have died in a long zombie death a long time ago, it's still going, so, and sometimes people are shocked to find out, but it's a
I thought that's why you brought me on, was to eat through it in the sleep.
Yeah, that's true, so, joining me with, we've got, Thomas Knapp, who is the...
don't make people see that.
No, okay, I'll turn it away. So, Thomas wrote the Endgame novels, which are the novels that are based on the game that Piero and Largo and Miho and a couple other characters used to play in the past. And it sort of takes the story like from the character's perspective, not as a game per se, but that's their actual life, and which fits in with kind of the stuff you see in the story. So, and it all predates what happened in Megatokyo. So, but it does a build up to everything and sort of captures everything. Also joining me is my son, Jack. Wave.
Hey.
Yeah. Jack loves to come to these conventions because he's an aspiring artist. And what do you
Yes.
like to do?
Well, I sell artwork. I do like my own drawings. I run a business called Jack's Drawings.
I was about
And,
to, I was about
and
to say.
I've been doing it since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time I've been selling it at Ohayocon, because I usually go to Yomacon.
I think you were like 3 when we came to Ohayocon last time, so he was a little small at that point. But
I was about to say, it's like this. You can't get this guy to shut up about his drawings, but you turn the camera on and his first response is, "Hi."
yeah, exactly. So Jack's kind of when I go to conventions, I always try to get a spot for him to sit and join me and do stuff.
Yes.
And I've tried to tell him over the years when he was younger, he used to do quite a bit of sales for some of the girls would walk by and think he's a cute little kid, and
Really?
next thing you know, you're buying stuff. Yep.
Wait,
But,
when did you tell me that?
I've told you
Was
that.
it when I was like
No.
5 when I was doing that? or
No.
when I was-
But you see, what's happening is now that you're getting older and you're kind of losing that little baby cute stuff, you actually got to produce the good art to do
which
the
I
sales.
have been.
Right.
And one piece of artwork has been taking me so long. It took me all day.
Yeah, he's getting
I've-
getting so good at it. He can turn down commissions. Just like
I didn't turn it down.
Oh, okay.
It was just that the woman wanted me to do it. It just didn't feel like it was the right thing. It
do.
had something to do with.
You have learned
with
an
the-
incredibly.
It had something to do with the bane of everyone's existence from the time of
Jack,
World War
Jack,
II.
Jack,
It's okay.
Jack.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna mention.
Actually, that's funny because he is at how old are you? 12? He
12.
has already learned how to turn down a commission he was uncomfortable with doing. That's
Okay.
that's impressive.
Okay, one. I did not.
Jack, Jack.
It's okay.
Just let
I
it
did
go.
not turn
Let
it
it go.
It's okay. No. Anyway,
I did not turn it down. I just told him to come back. Half another time.
well, that gets into the whole not being able to say no, and yeah, well, we'll talk about that. Raising kids, I'm sorry. It's the trouble with doing this sort of thing is that you, especially when you have your kid and they take over so much of your life. If people who don't have kids, sometimes they think it's cute, sometimes they think it's annoying. So I apologize, but he's a good man. He really is. So, but anyway, like I said, I've got this thing streaming online. I have no idea if it's working, but if it is, they can ask questions too. So,
Yes,
but
it
you
appears
guys are
to be
here,
working.
so you guys can. If you have any questions or any thoughts or anything you want to talk about, I'm happy to do it because we got plenty of time here. It's Friday. I got up this morning in Michigan. I drove down here in the rain, kind of got set up, did opening ceremonies, kind of talked to a couple of you guys actually before I got here, and then now here I am doing a panel. So not a lot of time to notify everybody, but I appreciate you coming. So, all right. So
And
anybody
more
want to say
friends
anything?
arrive. Hello.
Oh, hello. More people wandering into the wrong room. So.
Wait, this isn't the voice actors panel?
Well, years ago, I had a convention where my
I'm
friend,
sorry, guys.
yes, years ago, I had a guy helping me. He was my handler at one of the conventions, and he was exhausted. He was so tired that during the panel that I did, he laid across some chairs in the back of the room and fell asleep. And somebody got up and said, there's a guy back here sleeping. I said, I'm not surprised.
That's actually funny.
Oh, did I make a joke you think was actually funny? Wow, it's hard. If you can impress your kids, you're
Everybody
good.
thinks it's funny.
So you guys, are all you guys been reading Megatokyo like up to current, like been keeping up with it, or it's been years since you've read it and you have fond memories of it, though you don't know why, or you have no idea what it is?
Pretty sure I'm current, but I'm not sure I was sober when I was current. So
Okay, well,
That's actually probably the best way to approach it, honestly.
well, it's like what they're saying about the Cats movie. They're saying that it's developing this kind of thing. What they're doing is they're going either stoned or drunk, and it's changing their experience of the film. So it's not unusual to enjoy things under certain influences, I
Okay,
guess.
basically 99 to 100% of people who went to see the Cats movie went there so they could make fun of it. That's exactly what happened. It's so terrifying.
You're an incredibly wise 12-year-old.
It's also why I want to see it, so I can make fun of it.
So it
That's how the world
actually is like your comic.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, shut up.
It doesn't deserve the box office. This thing's
Yes.
it's probably not. Is it even making the box office?
Well, I don't know.
I have no idea.
Once you
what
get
I'm
into
saying.
those things, you ever do that thing where you're like, my God, they made a movie of this, but they didn't do this other thing I really like. Not that I'm claiming MT should ever have been. Oh my God, what a nightmare that'd be. But stuff you're just like, why?
Yes, like that's awful Cats.
It just goes to show you that often the decisions behind why, or the reality of why some things get made, have nothing to do with whether it's good or decent or something people really want. And that's just realistic.
I'm convinced that
It doesn't even matter if it makes money.
it
Disney
accidentally failed its way into production.
Yeah, I think so. And look at how much fun we have making fun of it. I have to say, and the thing is, okay, small secret about myself. I mean, Megatokyo, it doesn't have too much going on it, but it's got the Kitsune girls, you have, Yaku and Mugi, and the whole Saratari clan, which have snuck their way into the comic, and I do apologize for them showing up probably more than they should.
No, you don't.
No, not really. So hopefully they're likable characters. So I think they are, but they were kind of an homage to my own sort of artistic past, which there were many years, there was no way I would ever admit it. But when I was in college, or in high school and in college, I was essentially a furry. Now, I was a furry before the internet. And I was an innocent furry because I didn't know what a lot of furry art can be like. Because, I wanted to be an animator. I wanted to work for Disney. I loved the Robin Hood, and, of course, so, and that was the kind of, like, Secret of Nim is what really got me going on drawing. That movie is what inspired me to draw. It really was. And, what?
Nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
Nothing.
So,
Nothing.
hey, I even wrote Don Bluth a letter when I was a kid. He actually wrote me back, so he's cool dude. So, but anyway.
I am refraining from comment.
So anyway, and I used to, and it's really funny because it had a lot to do with I couldn't draw people very well. You'd draw people, they'd look dead. They had no expression. But the anthropomorphic faces, I could get a lot more expression out of. So I would always kind of lean toward doing anthropomorphic drawings because they had more feeling in them, more expression. And learning how to draw human characters and breaking myself away from drawing the anthropomorphic characters was something I actually made a concerted effort to do at some point. And then after that, at some point, I discovered anime or manga related art stuff in the comic shop, and it was all downhill from there. So so anyway, it's for me to, you have that little bit of homage in there, and that's you get this sort of history of where stuff comes from. Sometimes you go back to your own. I make references in my comic all the time that I know I'm the only person who understands it. There's a scene between where Piro is, or Miho is yanking Piro from one point to another, and they do go through some transference in location. And there's some shoes on the stairs. And I can guarantee you there's very few people who would catch what that's a reference to. Anybody catch what that reference is to at all? I can almost guarantee you nobody's gonna. Well, if you've read Jonathan Strange or Mr. Norrell, you would get that reference. Which has nothing to do with what's going on there, but I just, because I like to do stupid things that only mean something to me, I get lots of stuff like that.
Okay. I actually do have a comment. That you find Secret of Nim to be an inspiration explains so very much.
I was a kid. Love that movie. It's a good movie.
I didn't say it was bad. I just said it explains so very much.
It probably does, actually. I mean, looking back at it, it's like, damn, that was dark stuff. And
yes.
It was. And, but at some reason I was attracted to the cuteness of things, and that says a lot, doesn't it? So.
As I said, it explains so very much.
Okay. Any other comments or questions or thoughts? I mean, small group, it's like you can, yes, ma'am.
I can't remember the name of the hamster guardian that was with Largo.
Boo.
Is he still in there?
Oh, he's still in there. I wish I brought the comics with me because last time, I think he was talking to Erica, and he was telling her stories about his work, and she was very sympathetic. So, he's still quite active in there.
Especially now that she's basically kind of like doing his job.
Yeah. I want to see Boo in big mode, though. I'm waiting for that. Because, Seraphim has big mode where she's full-sized. Boo in big mode would be kind of amusing, I think.
Well, he'd just be an actual giant mutant space hamster.
Yeah, but
Basically,
about as
You
big
could
as
do
Largo.
it because that it's your comic. So you could basically do it. Why wait?
My 12-year-old child is taking the mystery and the joy out of these things, right?
Yes, it's your comic. You say that you're waiting for it. Just do it in the next book.
He doesn't know how I write, does he? No.
You write and torture
But anyway.
yourself. You torture yourself by not doing what you want, so you can do what you want later in the book.
Yeah, something like that. I have to listen to the characters, Jack. Sometimes the characters want to do things that I don't want them to do, but it's hard to prevent them. And the next thing you know, you've got to follow what the characters are doing. Otherwise, it's not very realistic, is it?
So that's how you write.
Yeah.
How you write is you torture yourself. So writing is just that's big hard work. That's probably what Squidward.
I could have left you home.
Because Squidward always says that everything is not fun and just hard work.
I look up to
basically.
Squidward. I like Squidward. He's all right.
Yes, but everybody for some reason just hates his artwork without even looking at it.
Yes. But he thinks it's good. Anyway, so I don't know if we had any questions.
We
come
do
up.
have an online question
Okay,
here.
So I'll take an online question just to be fair, so.
Parfy would like to know about the early days of webcomics and how things have changed.
No. Well, how many people, you guys been reading webcomics specifically in general over the years, or do you just sort of think of you don't think in webcomics specifically, because these days, you know, comics are comics, and whether you're a webcomic or not, you know.
I remember Top Up Comics and Keenspot.
You remember Keenspot? Okay, do you remember Big Panda?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're a long-suffering reader.
Me too.
Okay, yeah. You know, back when we started this, like, I mean, the genesis of Megatokyo is fairly simple and a little on the sad side, which is not surprising. But it comes down to, I had my the fredart.com site, and I do drawings, illustrations, stuff like that. And my friend, you know, one of the guys on the IRC channel kept bugging me to do a webcomic. You know, and he was the same guy who used to use a lot of leet speak and be really annoying, and we'd always ban him. But he said he had this domain, megatokyo.com. Now, does anyone here know where megatokyo.com may have originally come from and what it might have originally referenced? And this is why the fans of this particular series really hated us so much. Anybody remember Bubblegum Crisis?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Okay, Bubblegum Crisis.
You're
Megatokyo was where it happened, and one of the characters in Megatokyo, in the Bubblegum Crisis, name was Largo. So you see the references? These things go back. You get little breadcrumbs of things that come, you know, that were the influence or the genesis of things. It's also, for me, it's a little amusing because Erica has a lot of different references, you know, and when you're starting this thing, and it's like, we're doing our own comic, and we'll just put us in it, and well, we got to give ourselves girls. I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing, but you know, that's sort of what happened. So, you know, somehow, you know, Piero ended up with the basket case Kimiko, and Largo ended up with the kind of interesting and cool Erica character. But it's funny because, you know, Nabashin is here at this convention, right? And you guys familiar with Excel Saga by chance? Okay, we're going back a ways. I'm sorry. I'm old.
Kimiko is interesting in like a Hannibal Lecter sort of way.
I forget the character's name, and somebody might be able to help me with this because it's been a while, but in Excel Saga, there's a very aggressive character, young woman. If you look at her, she looks an awful lot like Erica. And I forget her name, but she's the one who has a pistol that can blow up mountains. So I'd have to look it back up again, but that was kind of the initial genesis of where Erica came from. So, you know, it sounds kind of sad, like we didn't know what we were doing when we started, with shock of shocks, or that there wasn't really a lot of planning. But I think when it comes to doing creative stuff, that's often the case. I mean, these works that people enjoy did not come fully assembled. They did not come fully thought out. You'd have little bits and pieces that people started to build on.
Fred,
and that's how
the
you
question
build
was
on it.
how things have changed.
I'm getting there.
It's like the filler episode of the question.
Yeah, it's the filler part of the question. How have they changed? Well, there's a couple of big changes that are you know, the one thing about doing a webcomic, you know, back then was, you know, we started doing it, and I started doing a couple of comics, and I really honestly did a couple of comics just to shut him up. In fact, I had somebody else who was pestering me to do a comic too. I did a little sketching for him too. And, well, he put a little site together that was really terrible. It had the drop down of death. Anybody remember the drop down of death? You're a pretty old school MT fan if you remember that. That's where all the comics were in it was a drop down. You know, you click on it and and the drop down had all 200 or 300 comics until we redid the site and it was better. But he did that sort of together, and the next thing we know the guys from Penny Arcade linked it. And next thing you know, we've got all these people coming over to the site looking for more comics, and it's like, well, crap, I guess I'm gonna have to keep doing this. And I haven't stopped, actually. So I haven't been able to stop since. So
This has been how many years since?
almost 20 years.
Oh my god.
Yes.
And how long has it been since?
This child is the best thing for my.
Have you even finished the book 7 yet?
No, I haven't finished book 7 yet. Thank you very much.
Good God, how
Why don't you pull up my wound and pour salt on it?
How long are you gonna keep working on
Okay.
that?
It's almost done.
Like
Stop
how
pushing me.
long?
But yes, you'll be fine in life. I'm
Can
pretty
you
sure.
believe his agent at Dark Horse doesn't understand that that Fred already has someone breathing on his neck?
But so in the end, it was about, as far as reaching visitors. I mean, people just came to my site. Now, one of the things about webcomics in general is back then they were when we started they were modeled after newspaper comics more than anything, and so you had Sluggy Freelance. Oh God, I can't think of a couple of the others, and Penny Arcade, whatnot. They were gag comics, and that's what people expected, huh?
Schlock Mercenary.
Oh yes, and what was the other one? That's the
Something
internet
Positive?
one, huh?
BGK something positive.
Yeah. And the thing was is that the expectation for comics was that they were going to be funny, and Rod was real good at kind of getting them. He talked to the guys at BioWare, he talked to Penny Arcade guys, he talked to the guy. There were some of the guys from GameSpy, and the GameSpy, which you remember what GameSpy was? That was where you would, when you wanted to connect, you would. I can't explain it very well. The old days of gaming.
It was networking before Steam was a thing.
Right. Thank you. There was a time in gaming before Steam when a lot of us used to do our. I used to play Quake over a phone modem. That's how far back. But,
It starts ringing.
and that was my dad trying to call me. So.
You really gotta take that phone off. It's embarrassing all the time.
That is my favorite. That phone. That
Didn't
phone.
you once say
The
that
fact that
you
it
wanted
embarrasses
to
you
take
is
it
why
off?
he's not taking it off.
It's a Lucky Star theme. Okay, sorry.
I know, but you said that it's embarrassing at Yomicon. Exactly.
Can you let me finish?
Yes.
Thank you. So, what the heck was I talking about? Now I'm totally thrown. Oh, the
How things have changed, but I think we've kind of beaten that one to death.
No, we haven't. It's not done yet. But the idea was what was happening was anime and manga was starting to get popular, And what was happening too is that webcomics were starting to get popular. People were reading them, and GameSpy was like, hey, can we put your, they were sort of aggregating a lot of comics, and they featured our comic on their site, and that was fine until I did the one comic where Piro gave Kimiko the rail card, and that was no joke. And they actually emailed me and said, hey, where's the joke? I said, well, sometimes the comics don't have jokes. And they were not happy. In fact, they dropped it because they didn't like the fact that I didn't have a joke for that one comic. And, I mean, how much did I care? I didn't. Because for me, I was it was like practicing to do a story later on. But I was going to force it and make it happen while I was practicing doing this webcomic. So, things evolved and changed, and nowadays, there's a lot of comics that came along that had developing stories that were not jokes, that were not, there wasn't like Calvin and Hobbes, it was like a manga, one page at a time. The aggregators came along. I mean, it's the one big problem with comics back then was nobody paid for anything. I mean, you didn't have sites where you get a cut of exposure and sales, and if you have so many, you get and people. There wasn't Patreons and Kickstarters and all sorts of other stuff. It was you had to pay for your own hosting, and hosting was a lot more expensive back then. I mean, it was pretty expensive hosting Megatokyo for a while when it was really popular. It really was. A lot easier these days. It's amazing how much cheaper it is. It really is. The biggest change, a lot of people did pretty well with webcomics during the time because people were reading manga, and there was only so much available through Barnes and Noble or Borders or wherever, and they'd read what they could get. I mean, they were reading Mars, for God's sakes. I mean, they were reading some pretty sad excuses for manga that was available. And then they went online to find stuff. And I was lucky enough that I was one of the ones there that they found online that made them think of the same kinds of things they liked about manga. So that's how Megatokyo got popular. People trying to do the same thing today, I say, it's just so much more difficult. The main reason being is that today, if you go, back then you go online looking for comics, you would come across mine. You would come across web comics is what you would find. Today, you go online looking for comics, you get Manga Dex, you get Batato, you get the scanlators, who it's basically all the Japanese comics are all translated and ready to go. So basically, I was competing against other amateurs. Today, aspiring artists are competing against professionals, and I think that's unfortunate. And that's really had a big impact on, everybody wants to do a comic and be successful with it. It's hard, because you're not just competing against each other. You're competing against the pros, and that's a little sad. So, Okay, now that would be the end of that question. So, sorry.
Well, let's take one from the crowd, and then we'll grab another internet one.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I got one.
Okay.
I remember like reading your comics way back when the scenery and backgrounds were really beautiful.
Mhm.
I was wondering, did you use any studies for that, or I was wondering how you made those because they look really detailed to me. So.
Well, the backgrounds sort of have a tendency to be. The way I tend to approach things has always been that it's almost more of a cinematic approach. You know, I mean, back when Vertigo's and Marvel started, they really started challenging like format and the things that comics can do and the page layouts. For me, if you really break down my comics, they're really just individual frames. They might be squeezed, they might be enlarged or whatever. So, and I kind of have this tendency to feel like if something's in the frame, you kind of need to draw it. So you learn a little economy of scale over time in that you draw a background or you draw a sense of place to kind of set where things are at so people know what's going on. If you overdo it, you might take away from what you really want people to focus on. But when it comes to the types of things that I would draw, I mean, I was trying to capture a sense of place, a feel of the place. I mean, one thing that they've got that we have these days, which is great that we didn't have when I started, was Google Earth. That's the best. I mean, I would have killed for that back when I started Megatokyo because you could actually walk around the city streets and get it. I mean, all I had was whatever photos I could find, and oftentimes, a lot of times, I would generate the cities and the backgrounds based on what my remembrance or my knowledge of the locales and and as an architect, I mean, I kind of understand how buildings went together, and so I would think about, for me, I could see the differences between what we have here, in the U.S. versus how a business might be put together in Japan. So I would sort of mix those things up, and I'd end up creating buildings like the Mega Gear store, or the Mega, Mega Gamers store, which the most unlikely building in the world, but it ended up getting a lot of detail, which was based on a mix of things. So as far as the studies go, it was more of kind of what was in here than it was trying to copy. In fact, I had this thing where, and if you look at it, sometimes and you see it in comics sometimes, where you see the background and it's well drawn and stuff like that. And darn well it was taken from a photograph, where they've just traced over the photograph. For me, what I have a tendency to do is I'll take a couple of photographs of an area like Harajuku, that sort of area, and instead of drawing the tracing over a photograph, I'll actually try to construct it based on what I'm seeing. And I think that you just get a better feel for what you're doing, or sense of what you're trying to, of the place itself. So, and that's sort of it, because, characters, when you draw them, they have their own it's like sculpture. It has its own little bit of space around it. A sculpture or a person can define their own space, and you kind of mix that up with the spaces around people and the things that they see. And it's a lot of times it's like free drawing. You just sort of let it go, and it starts out really sketchy, and you just start to sort of build it up and build a sense of depth. And I do this. I did this just the other day. It's just sort of typically how I do it. Sometimes it works. Usually it works. I don't know why, but I have no faith in it working. But it sometimes does. Usually does. So, okay. What is it, bud?
Okay, ask if anybody has any questions for me.
Okay.
We'll get to that in a moment.
We'll get to that in a moment. So,
I'm going to grab a couple questions online here because one of them's a short one.
okay.
One of them's a little more involved.
All right.
The first one is Super Potatoes asks, "Is Miho a Time Lord?"
I can't answer that question.
I didn't think. And the second one, from Thadalonius, asks, "Did you or Ronnie take any inspiration from Serial Experiments Lane?"
Oh, totally. Actually, funny story, and you guys can actually look this up. If you look up, what was his name? The guy who started Pirate Bay. What was his name?
The guy who started Pirate Bay, that's his name. Let's go on. Let's go on.
Internet. Does anybody remember what his name was? He was. There's a photo of this guy. I wish I could remember his name.
I think you're losing the forest for the trees here, Fred.
Well, that doesn't matter. Anyway, he's a fairly well-known guy who started the downloading stuff and ended up getting arrested and whatnot. But there's a picture of him from many years ago in a room that looks like kind of a hacker's paradise kind of thing. It's just, they've got like aluminum foil hanging from the ceiling. I mean, it's really, it looks like it's in a shack somewhere. The odd thing about the photo is that amongst all the stuff that's scattered around, there's a drawing tacked to the wall amongst all the other ones. That is the drawing of Lane that I did on the Fred Art site many years ago. So, and this all was photographed, happened before Megatokyo. I'm gonna have to look that up because I've got a copy of that, but I think it's on his wiki page. I just can't remember his name. But there were 3 people. Let's see if he comes across the. No, it's not Godfrey.
Shaggy something?
Huh? What was it?
Shaggy? Here's the photo. It just says Shaggy.
Here, let me see the photo.
One of it is,
That's the photo. Yeah, it's let's see. Yeah, that's not his name. It's Pirate Bay founder. Yeah, but if you look in the lower left corner. That's my drawing.
Now, I actually have I actually have a question in relation to this.
Yes. What?
Which made you more proud? Seeing that, the astronaut who brought himself out into space, or the suicide girl who has a tattoo of Yuki?
I knew you were going to bring that up.
what?
Wait, what? Yeah. Okay, 2 things. Okay, there is a astronaut, Dr. Love is his name, Stanley Love. He was on a shuttle mission, and he took a Megatokyo hat into space with him, and there's a photograph of him with the hat, and he sent me the hat. And that's one of my most interesting collectibles from doing this over the years. And it was quite the thing. And you know, this was before Jack was old enough to really appreciate it, but it was just a very interesting thing to get. The other thing that he mentioned is there was one of the suicide girls. I don't know which one. There's one of them.
They were basically cam girls before cam girls were.
Yeah, she had a tattoo on her back of, you know, the one of Yuki hugging a bear? Well, it's that one with Yuki naked tattooed on her back. Okay, so hey, why not? You know, people do things. So, yeah, you get some. Yeah, no, let's not get into this conversation.
I knew.
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
You not know why I was going. You guys would not know why I was proud.
No, and I don't think they should.
I do not know why.
You're 12. Don't worry about it.
And how come that did not work?
Yes, I know. No, it's this is it's a personal joke actually between the 2 of us right now. But anyway, you just had to bring that up, didn't you? So, okay. All right. So, any other questions from you guys?
You talked about your roots drawing anthropomorphic art.
Mm-hmm.
2 comics that I know, one of them's going to be insanely more popular than the other. Do you know of 2 kinds?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do you know of the webcomic Criminal King?
No, that one doesn't ring a bell. So,
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. I used to live in California.
okay.
And I played D&D with somebody at the card shop.
Uh-huh.
You've been there. And it turns out that he actually does the whole webcomic for Criminal King like himself.
No, okay.
So he's the artist and the writer. Like he has a friend or something help him manage the website or something.
Yeah.
But have you, because you said you tried to steer clear from doing anthro art, you made a focused effort to do that.
Back when I was just out of college, yeah, I did.
Would you like ever go back and try talking to any other online creators about?
Well, I'd happily talk to them. You gotta, the history with that for me is that you gotta remember I come from an era before the internet, which should say a lot, and I was very much drawing my own stuff. It was Secret and Nim influence, Robin Hood, all this other stuff. And does anybody know what an APA is? Amateur Press Association. What an APA was is they were little groups. What people would do is that they would organize an APA, and people would do submissions. You'd come up with like 10, 15 pages, whatever. You would make, if there's 30 people in it, you would make 30 copies, photocopies of your submission. You would send it to somebody who would collate it, put them all together, staple them all together, and then send them out to everybody else. So that's how APAs were initially done, and people used to share work that way. So, you know, trying to print your own comics, very expensive, you know. I mean, one of my influences is a guy named Steve Galacki, who did Irma Felna EDF, the Albedo comics. If you're into the furry stuff, you might know them. But that's going back, you know, and he broke his bank trying to print those darn things, which is interesting because it was one of his comics that the first Usagi Yojimbo showed up in, which turned into a collector's item, except nobody wanted his stuff. But yeah, what happened was, and it was interesting because I'm still living at home, which should be the first clue of what's going to happen next. You know, and my artwork was, I've never really did anything too lewd, really. It wasn't ever kind of my thing. Maybe it was just because I was more interested in not looting things particularly. And when I got the first copy of the first APA that I got involved with, I was a little surprised by some of the content. It was not what I was expecting, some of it, which is fine. I mean, it's just, and it just goes to show you that it was just, I mean, if you're online and you get into a fandom or into a, I mean, you see generally what everybody's doing, it's all there, you know? But when you're doing it so isolated, and you just hear from people who, and it's really weird because I have some people who they're very fond of their work, and it was just so weird. Just last year, I happened to notice that 2 of them were following me on Facebook, and I'm just like, that's been like almost 30 years, you know, or 25 years or something like. So that was kind of cool to see that. So, and that they were still around. So, okay. Any other questions, or you've been following anything? I know we had
Yes.
some.
Parthi asks, would you consider doing a comic that's set in another country?
Megatokyo is set in another country. It's set in Japan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you talk about doing a comic that's set in another country?
Doing
I'm
a
sorry.
comic set in another country. It's not the problem with doing a comic set in another country for me, and it's the problem. One of the problems with Megatokyo is that I have talked to people who looked at comic art that other young people were doing, and they would look at some submission. You know, one of the people in the comics industry would look at submission. It's like, it's basically just copycatting stuff that they see in manga. It doesn't have any actual original thought to. I mean, they're just trying so hard to recreate the manga that they like that it doesn't have anything in it that is unique or interesting or real grab. You know, it's like there are some people who could do something that looks like Inuyasha to the point that why would you read their stuff, because it's nothing more than a copy of Inuyasha, you know. And what I was doing with Megatokyo was, I mean, these are not Japanese characters, these are Americans, or these are guys that I could relate to in some way or another, and I'm sticking them in a culture where I was trying very hard to look at it and say, anime and manga is to the Japanese people that I've met and known, or in general, the same way Hollywood movies are to Americans. And look at the damage that's done to Americans over the history of mankind. So, you know, and I've always tried to challenge those things. You get the tropes about what you're expecting, and then the character might act differently in a way that I thought was more realistic, or more, you know, kind of less of a trope response that you'd see in some anime or manga. There's so many things that happen in anime or manga. It's just it grits my teeth sometimes. It's so unrealistic. But what it is it's kind of the fantasy of what some people like to see, you know. And trying to understand that, I think, I kind of have built that into some of the things I do with MTA. So.
And here Fred channels his inner Miyazaki.
I'm like his sad, homeless younger brother, right? Jesus. So, okay. Any other what?
Now I can ask questions.
You want to ask a question? Go ahead.
No, not questions. I mean, can people ask questions?
If anybody has any questions for you, they're welcome to.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions about me? About what I do? If any of you heard.
I think they know who you are, buddy. They'd have to. If you do get a chance to come by, you can look at his stuff.
Yes,
Maybe
I'm
learn
by
a
the
little bit about it.
Megatokyo booth. Though my stand is a little bit behind the other tables.
Yeah. Well, when we talked
My
about
main-
having a place for you to.
Yeah, my main theme this year has been
We do have one comment asking why it took so long for Jack to get on the mic.
okay. So my main theme for artwork this year has been The Legend of Zelda.
Mhm.
I've been doing a lot of artwork.
Any Legend of Zelda fans? Okay, well, okay.
Yeah, I've been doing. Yeah,
Just remember, Jack, we only have about 15 minutes.
Yes.
yeah, I've been coming up with my own Legend of Zelda games. So yeah, I've been doing artwork from my own imagination, not based off of
Okay.
something else.
Well,
He
good.
will go for hours about this.
Yes.
Just
I'm
warning you
not
all
going to
now.
explain the story. I'm better at controlling that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you can.
One big thing that's a difference too, that between Jack and myself, it's interesting, is that I never really have been able to play through many RPG games or any big games of any sort, because what happens is I start to get into a game or I'll play something, and I start to get frustrated with the structure, and I kind of want to go off and create other stuff. So what would happen is I'd start a game like Secret of Mana, and I just, after a while, I'm going to go off and make my own stuff, and that's what I did. So I would always sort of start games, and I'd kind of like the feel of them, but I never would actually be able to play them because I always wanted to do my own thing. Jack, on the other hand, is quite capable of completionism, going through and playing these games all the way through, and then creating his own stuff based on it, which I have a lot of respect for. Because,
Which should also be in the same series
yes,
as it. Which is why I want to work for Nintendo, but my parents say I'll never be able to.
I never said never.
He didn't say.
I just
or
said you
he's-
got to show them first.
Yes, but he says that.
Oh
they
no,
probably
not this
won't work.
conversation.
Yes.
So, but anyway, no, you keep at it. You're doing a good job. You are.
Yes.
Fred,
so if you stop,
Yes.
Can I remind you
Yeah.
of a young man who dreamed one day of working for Disney?
Yes. Yeah. And look what happened to me.
I'm just saying, like father, like son.
Yes. Well, hey, that was my original goal. In fact, when I was in college, when I was in high school, I wanted to go to Sheridan or UCLA and study animation. I wanted to be a Disney animator. That's what I wanted. But, I mean, it shows you how old I am, in that at that point in time, the animation in this country was an absolutely dead industry. There was nothing. I think the last Disney movie that had been made was The Black Cauldron. That's how, okay? Spielberg was just about to get to the point to bring out like American Tail, The Secret Nimid to come out, so there was attempts, but so I ended up going to school and learning to be an architect. Now, here I am, 5 years later, I'm in graduate school as an architect, and The Little Mermaid came out. And I'm sitting there kicking myself for years on end because I said, you know, if you had gone into animation and studied animation, you could have got in on the ground floor of the resurgence of animation at Disney. And I did. I kicked myself for years about that. Probably charred my soul with thinking about that. But the thing is that years later, when I started doing the MT stuff in particular, I started to realize that if I had gone to school and learned how to draw the Disney way, I would have probably drawn like the Disney guys. My style would not be the freak show that it is. It would be something very tuned by what the needs of Disney were. And, you know, I don't know, maybe in some weird universe I might have had some influence on, but in general, it wouldn't have necessarily been mine. By doing an independent comic the way I'd done it, it was very much my own creation, to the point where I could really just ignore anybody else who didn't like it, and, you know, people like it, they come and see it. If they don't like it, they don't bother. Whereas if you're working for somebody else, you really have to meet the standards and structures that they have. So that's why I don't consider myself a professional artist, because I can only do what I want to do. I'm not capable of doing what other people want me to do. That always leads to enormous failures. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is coming from like this, kind of like your like Dead Hero,
Okay.
comics or
Mhm.
filler. Whatever happened to Dom? I remember
Oh.
Stick Figure Dom.
What happened to Sure Guy Dogs?
He's around.
I know.
I think he's been playing Grand Blue. What is it? Grand Blue Fantasy? How do you
Grand
pronounce
Blue
it?
Fantasy, yep.
Grand Blue Fantasy. That's, if you want to know what Dom himself has really been into lately, that's what he's been doing. So
He
he's
actually
still-
has his own channel,
Yes, he does.
Grand Blue Radio, I believe.
Yes, that's right. So if you're ever curious, you can sort of see what he's up to there. As far as the stick figure comics, Man, we've tried to kill those. Tried to burn those.
I enjoyed those.
Those were. It's like, what are you doing?
I
Why?
tried to take over that mantle, and Fred just basically said
Dad,
no.
are you seriously talking about Randall Monroe?
No, I'm
as
not
a
talking about
stick
Randall
figure
Monroe.
comment?
No.
Or stick
Oh, I
figure
should relate
comments?
this. Speaking of stick figures, I will relate this, and this, if you follow my stuff, you may have seen this recently. But, you know, Randall Monroe, XKCD. You guys familiar with that? So, pretty well-known comic. I'm lucky in some ways because I actually appeared in a XKCD comic many years ago. He gave me cake. I don't ask. It's a weird little comic, but it's funny to me at least. And you know, I've never thought too much more of it other than that's kind of cute. You know. Anyway, so last, I think in November.
Last November.
November, yeah. Randall Monroe was in Ann Arbor doing a promotion for his book tour of what was the name of the book? It was How Things Work, or was one of those, you know, what his
It
stuff
was
is.
it was one of his compilations.
Way overdone,
Wait,
interesting,
hold on.
funny stuff. But anyway, so I went to that with Jack, and
Yeah,
Was he-
the book was called How To.
How to, that's right. You see, I
Yeah.
keep him around
That
because
was
his
fun.
brain works, mine
and,
does not.
and it's incredibly amusing because
Yes, I know
the
you.
first sentence is, "Hello, this is a book of bad ideas."
There you go. That's what he liked that. So anyway, there, and afterwards you get a book with the, you know, and you know, with the tickets, and you can go up and everybody can get your book signed, and so we wait in line and doing all this other stuff. And one of the things you can do is put your name on there. You put your name so he knows how to write it too, and it was pretty funny. We get up there and Jack's talking to him, and God, they start talking about, you know.
Yes, I asked a question.
Yeah,
I
good
asked
question.
an interesting question about
He likes to work with
if
kids.
if a meteor went to the atmosphere so fast that there was no time to burn,
Yeah.
then he said that was not possible.
Right. So, but it was a good conversation. So then I put my book down and it had my name, Fred Gallagher, in it, and because I was not about to say anything. I just was going to be curious whether he was going to remember me at all. And he takes the book and turns it around and he looks at it and he goes, you know, and then he reaches out his hand to shake my hand. So it was pretty funny. I was wondering if he'd remember. So, and it was kind of cute too because in his little signature he drew a stick figure giving me a cake, piece of cake. So that was fun. That was fun. That was nice. So, yes, my little brushes with celebrity, I guess. There was a time that John Romero actually sent me some scans of some comics that he wrote when he was in high school on note paper. I wish I knew where those were, but that was a long time ago. Okay, where are we at time-wise?
Yeah, John Romero is actually now at the point where people are actually taking him seriously as a game maker again.
Oh, really?
Think about it. He went from relevance to irrelevance, back to relevance in the time that you've still been irrelevant.
Thank you. And that gives me hope that maybe I could possibly be semi-less irrelevant at some point in the near future.
I have no idea what was just said.
Good.
Don't worry
and I
about it.
don't even care. Why would I care?
But, okay. So how much time we got left here to fill anything out of it?
About 11 minutes.
11 minutes, so. Any other thoughts or anything from, yes, sir? Sure.
You said you were interested in animation when
Mhm.
you were younger.
Yeah.
Were you ever interested in 3D animation, or did we not talk about that here?
Oh, no, 3D animation's fine. This was before 3D animation was very much a thing. God, I'm so old. Sometimes it's scary. But when I was in college, actually, because I actually was, when I worked as an architect, one of the things that I did is I started out doing construction documents by hand. It was all pencil and vellum. We transitioned while I was, you know, during that time period from working on paper documents, you know, on vellum, to working in AutoCAD, and it was very much teasing the plotter to print, to do things that looked like you did them by hand, and I was pretty good at that. That was kind of fun. But the 3D stuff was, they just had started to introduce the 3D stuff into the AutoCAD at one level, and it was I don't know what the term for it would be, but it was, if you built something, you were building, if you built a cube, you had to build all sides of it. It was not solid modeling at all. And so if you built a building, you had to build every face and attach it. And I actually did a project in college where I built a little 3D model of one of Brunelleschi's buildings, and I was proud of that darn thing. But it was not animated, it was just a 3D model. And later on, one of the things I've discovered about my own sort of the way I approach art is I'm not very good at being able to approach building something from a technical perspective. I sort of have to be able to randomly mess around with it. That's why the sketching, you know, when it comes to doing digital art, you got to be able to think through, I need to color these things this way. And if you're coloring things this way, it doesn't look natural at all. But in the end, you end up with something awesome. Does that make sense? In other words, you're building something that you're using very non-intuitive ways to make it look right. And that's why, you know, as far as the 3D animation goes, I mean, I love the concept of it, but I have, you know, I'm leery of the subtlety that I could get in it. I mean, I think that they can do subtlety pretty well these days, but sometimes they overdo it. So I don't know. It's certainly beyond my capacity. I know that. So, and oh yeah, and the funny thing is too, wanting to be an animator, being able to get into the ground floor, making a career out of being an animator. How many years later would the whole industry collapse again? Was it Atlantis? Is that what finally
Yep.
did him in?
think
So,
that was the
so
last.
I would have been screwed. You know? So it's just weird when you're looking at the things you want to do and you start to see, well, maybe I did okay in the end. You know,
In relation to Shirt Guy Dom, why was it always the spleen?
I don't know. Do you see, Dom was scary. I was glad he lived in California and I lived out here. There was, you know, and the same with Ed. You know, and they're real people,
Yeah.
huh?
I forgot about him.
Oh, yeah, he's still around. He's still around. Still around. You know, Asmodeus too. Most of them are. In fact, what's funny is that there's part of who Largo is based on is not it's part Rodney, but also part somebody else that I knew in college, and his girlfriend at the time. And it was really funny is that she picked up on some of the things I was doing with Erica that came from her, which was really funny. So, you know, I mean, you pick up influences from things, and, you know, she could totally recognize some of the behaviors of this friend of ours in Largo. And she's like, you know, Erica's not me, is she? And I said, no, she's not. She's a lot taller than you. And, I mean, it's just funny, you know, and you look back, and it's just funny where things come and go. It really is. So, but you know, the joke about, you know, continuing to do this stuff. I mean, you feel like everything is so flash in the pan that, you know, something is incredibly popular and everybody's watching it, and it's like and then, you know, a year later nobody's talking about it at all, and it's kind of sad, you know, because I think in my case, I think I have a lot of followers that they've just followed it because they've been happy with it one way or the other, and they stay away from it for a year, and then they're like, oh, that's right, I can go back and read, and you know, that's not so bad, you know, instead of just getting really irritated with it. I'm sure I've had people rage quit. I know that I had some people who were unhappy with this chapter because they thought it focused too much on sexuality, which I guess it maybe did a little. I don't know. It's hard. The things that people get intense about is funny. I got an email once when Yuki did the little climbing thing on the stairs to the telephone poles and was climbing on the wires, and sort of that whole reveal that she was kind of a magical girl. And it was funny because I got an email from somebody, an absolute rage-filled email. How could I possibly introduce magic into Megatokyo? Oh, shit. And just, I mean, so mad at me because not only had I done that, but this person had introduced Megatokyo to some of his or her friends. I can't even remember the details, but it's like, I mean, have you read the rest of the comic? I mean, and it's magic that gets you upset? But, you know, I mean, you can't do anything about that sometimes. Well, you know, it's just
Yeah,
weird, the things that people get
yeah.
upset about. Yes.
People can be stupid. Just remember that. Just remember that. Like that person that rage emailed you about magic. That's an example of the endless stupidity.
Okay, what's that say? I can't read it.
5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Wow, I'm getting old. I couldn't read that. That's sad. But yeah, and then I'll end it with the final email.
I can't even see it.
My final favorite email was I went to, I think it was Anime Central or something. It was years ago. I mean, I'm not as old looking as I am now, but I was, I was in my 40s, and I was I'd go up and this person emailed me. It's like, I was really disappointed when I saw you on stage. You were nothing like the character Pero in real life, and I was really disappointed. You seemed like this older guy who was trying to look young, wearing younger people clothing. And I'm just like, and then it just went straight from that into I was so happy to meet you. I love your artwork. You've been such an influence to me. I absolutely love what you're doing. And I'm just like, whoa, teenage brain,
The
What?
camera isn't on you.
Yes, it is. I'm here.
No,
This is covering the
it's
camera.
it's most.
It's mostly
He's on
you.
It's,
All right.
then which one of them is true?
I'll show you how it works later. Okay. All right. So, does anybody else have any burning questions? Yes, sir.
Are your mortals combat skills good enough to get me to another country?
Absolutely not.
Me? No. I'm not Largo. I would have been. That thing where they do the little thing. It's like, oh, we're trying to get in Japan. Oh, you have to beat Mortal Kombat to get through. Lose. The end. I mean, that would have been the shortest webcomic ever. Sometimes I think I should have gone that route.
Megatokyo, what ifs?
Yeah. Well, that's there you go with the thing between, what Rodney did and what I did. I'm trying to build this sort of realistic, intricate love story thing. And Rodney's trying to put zombies and Mortal Kombat visas and all this other. And what that did is that's where the whole genesis of the two different views of the world came from between the two characters. And working with that has been kind of what made it work. So.
That's how we got fear thoughts.
Yes, it is. So, all right. Well, hey, thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate it. Hopefully that wasn't too much of a waste of your time. Appreciate it. All right. So, thank you. Now, off button. Got it. No. Oh, are you sure I want to end the stream?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.